Most people think hiring a good divorce lawyer means they'll walk away protected. That once the papers are signed, the assets are split, and the judge bangs the gavel, they're free to move on. Financially secure. Legally covered. Safe. But that's not always the case. Because what your lawyer might not tell you, or might not even think to bring up, is what happens after the case is over. When the courtroom is empty, the settlement's been filed, and real life begins again. That's when the financial hits start piling up. Quietly. Slowly. And often in ways you never saw coming. The truth is, lawyers are trained to win legal battles. Not to protect your long-term savings. Not to guide you through the emotional spending, the tax surprises, or the lifestyle adjustments that come after. And while they may do their best to fight for what looks fair on paper, what's fair today might feel like a mistake 5 years from now. If you're in the middle of a divorce, or even just thinking about one, this could be the most important conversation you hear. Because over the next few minutes, we're going to talk about 6 hidden financial risks your divorce lawyer might never mention. But that could quietly drain your emergency savings and wreck your stability if you're not prepared. Let's start with one of the biggest traps. The one that feels like a win, but could cost you everything. One of the first things people fight for in a divorce is the house. It feels like stability. Like something familiar to hold on to while everything else falls apart. And most lawyers will back that decision. Because on paper, keeping the house looks like a win. It's a big asset, after all. But what they don't always tell you is what happens after you get the keys. Because once your name is the only one on the mortgage, the math changes fast. You're now responsible for the full payment, the taxes, the maintenance, the insurance, everything. Even things like roof repairs, appliance replacements, and rising utility costs that used to be shared are now your burden alone. What once felt like home can quickly become a financial trap. You might stretch your budget to keep it, telling yourself it's worth it for the kids, or for your peace of mind. But that emotional attachment can blind you to the long-term damage. Especially if you're dipping into savings to make ends meet or neglecting retirement contributions just to cover bills. And here's what makes it worse. The value of the house doesn't help you month to month. You can't pay your grocery bill with square footage. You can't patch a savings account with home equity unless you sell. And if the market turns, even that option can backfire. This is how people who thought they won the house end up house poor, over-leveraged, and financially stuck. So before you celebrate keeping the home, ask yourself, can you afford to live in it alone? Or are you trading financial freedom for a familiar address? Because the house might not be the asset you think it is. And the next thing your lawyer might skip over could cost you even more. Especially if it's tied to your future retirement. On the surface, splitting retirement accounts seems simple. You each get your fair share, and your lawyer makes sure the numbers add up. But here's the part they might not emphasize enough. How you divide those accounts can quietly cost you thousands, sometimes even tens of thousands, if it's not done exactly right. Most people don't realize that retirement assets are not like cash in a bank account. They come with strict tax rules and penalties. And if your lawyer doesn't push for a qualified domestic relations order, also known as a QDRO, you could be on the hook for fees you never expected. One wrong move, and you might owe a huge tax bill just for accessing what was already legally yours. Let's say you're awarded a portion of your ex's 401k. If that transfer isn't handled through a QDRO, withdrawing even a small amount could trigger early withdrawal penalties and income tax, especially if you're under 59 and a half. You thought you were getting $50,000, but after taxes and fees, it might look more like $30,000, or less. Worse, if you roll it over incorrectly or take a lump sum too early, that retirement cushion disappears faster than you ever planned. And here's where it gets even trickier. Some lawyers assume the financial planner will handle the fine print. But unless you push for a full breakdown, how and when these accounts can be accessed, what penalties exist, how to protect your portion from market dips, you might be walking into a trap disguised as a victory. Retirement accounts are one of the biggest financial pieces in a divorce. But without careful planning, they can turn into long-term liabilities instead of future security. And even if you get the division right, there's another slow leak that most people, and most lawyers, forget to consider. One that quietly drains the value of your settlement over time, without making a sound. When you agree on alimony or support payments, it often feels like a win. You've secured a predictable income stream. But if those numbers aren't tied to inflation, they become a stealth tax on your future. 30 years ago, a $1,000 monthly payment bought a lot more than it does today. And if your settlement doesn't include a cost of living adjustment, every year that number shrinks in real purchasing power. Imagine counting on that same check to cover your rent or groceries 10 years down the road, only to realize it barely covers half your essentials. Many lawyers negotiate for a fixed figure and never mention indexing. As a result, your stability erodes over time, and you're left scrambling to make up the difference. It's not just alimony. Even property division can lose value. A lump sum payment tucked into a low-yield account or failing to invest wisely can't outpace rising prices. That fair split you celebrated might look very different when inflation has eaten up 20 or 30% of its value. Most people focus on getting the numbers they see today. But smart planning demands thinking ahead. Tying support to reliable indexes or carving out investment strategies that adjust for rising costs. Otherwise, you're locked into a settlement that works right now but fails you later. Fixing today's figures without an inflation safeguard is like building your house on sand. It stands until the tides rise. But even if you protect against inflation, there's a gap in coverage that can hit you faster and harder than any cost of living increase. Let's dive into what happens when your health insurance disappears overnight. Losing health insurance can feel like getting punched when you're already on the ropes. One day you're covered under your spouse's plan. The next, you're on your own. And the gap often shows up without warning. Cobra might save you for a while, but it's notoriously expensive. Imagine paying nearly double your old premium just to keep the same coverage. For many, that price tag forces a choice between paying the doctor or covering rent. And when Cobra ends, private plans can be even costlier, or leave you with holes in coverage you never expected. Skipping coverage, just for a month, is a risk few understand. A single ER visit or prescription can drain your emergency fund in a heartbeat. One broken wrist, one sudden illness, and you could be staring at medical bills big enough to sink any safety net you've built. Most divorce agreements never address how you'll replace health benefits. Lawyers focus on assets, custody, and support, but they rarely map out your healthcare future. And when you realize you're on the hook for every copay, deductible, and surprise bill, it's often too late to renegotiate. Being uninsured or underinsured doesn't just threaten your savings. It threatens your well-being. And as if that weren't enough, there's another silent spender lurking behind the scenes: your own emotions. Let's look at how emotional spending can empty your account faster than any bill. After the courtroom lights dim and the ink dries, you might think the biggest battles are over. But divorce isn't just a legal process. It's an emotional upheaval, and our wallets often bear the scars. Loneliness, guilt, the urge to prove you're fine. These feelings can drive spending in ways you won't see coming. You upgrade your apartment for a fresh start, splurge on designer clothes because you deserve it, or book that getaway to heal. Each purchase feels justified in the moment, a small reward for surviving the storm. Then there's spending on behalf of the kids. Extra gifts, elaborate outings, even tutoring. Every parent wants to fill the gap left by a broken home. But beneath the goodwill lies a deeper impulse: to ease your own guilt. Those costs add up fast, quietly chipping away at any cushion you thought you had. Because emotional spending isn't one big mistake. It's hundreds of tiny ones. A latte here, a dinner out there, subscriptions you don't really use. You don't notice it until you check your bank statement and realize your emergency fund has vanished. Not in a spectacular crisis, but through dozens of harmless transactions. Lawyers can't protect you from this. They negotiate settlements, not self-control. And unless you acknowledge the emotional triggers driving your spending, no budget or spreadsheet will save you. Recognizing that urge, before you swipe the card, might be the single most powerful financial move you make post-divorce. But even the steeliest resolve can't shield you from one final cost few ever consider: the ongoing legal fees that resurface long after you think you've moved on. When you signed the final decree, you probably thought the legal bills were over. In reality, divorce often marks the start of a long, unpredictable stretch of post-settlement disputes, and each one comes with its own invoice. Custody schedules shift as kids grow up. Support payments need adjusting when jobs change. Even enforcing an agreement can drag you back into court, facing hourly fees that mount faster than you expect. What your lawyer might not emphasize is how common and costly these follow-up battles are. You assume the big fight ended at the courthouse, but life rarely follows a neat timeline. Every disagreement over a moving date or a missed payment can trigger new filings, fresh negotiations, and another round of attorney calls. Before you know it, You're paying for the privilege of rehashing every detail you thought was settled. And because most people don't budget for ongoing legal support, those surprise bills can obliterate any financial cushion you had left. Recognizing that divorce isn't a one-and-done event, but an evolving process, might be the smartest move you make. Because the only thing more dangerous than ignoring hidden costs is assuming your lawyer's final invoice is truly the last one you'll ever see. Looking back, it's clear that a divorce decree is just the beginning of your financial journey, not the end. The house you fought to keep can become a silent drain. Retirement funds split without the right paperwork can vanish in taxes. Fixed support payments lose value to inflation. Health coverage can disappear overnight. Emotional spending chips away at savings in the name of healing. And post-divorce legal fees can pull you back into court long after you thought it was over. Most people focus on splitting assets and custody before the divorce, but neglect what really matters afterward: protecting your long-term security. Your lawyer can guide you through the legal maze, but only you can spot and prepare for the hidden risks that don't show up on a balance sheet. If this video opened your eyes, tell me in the comments which one of these 6 risks surprised you the most, and how you plan to safeguard your future. Your experience could be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button now. We'll keep bringing you insights that help you not just survive life's biggest changes, but come out stronger on the other side. Thanks for watching, stay vigilant, and remember, it's not just about winning in court, it's about winning at life.